Welcome back to Big Bear Woodshop. Working on the teaching platform still. This is part 2 of the 3-part series. And if you haven't watched part 1 yet, where I do the main cutting and assembly, I'll have a link in the description and off to the side up here. Now I'm going through with each one of these boards and sanding them down. I'm going to sand the top and the sides. And these are just framing boards, and they're not the cleanest or the smoothest, so I'm going over them with an 80 grit sandpaper first, and then I'll be going over them with a 100 and a 120. Yeah, I had been, during the assembly process, listening to a podcast with without headphones, just through the speakers, and the sander obviously is quite loud, so got some headphones out, partially for ear protection and partially just so I can hear what I was listening to. Now this is the first time I've used a random orbit sander. I bought it for this project. I thought this was really cool. The dust collection on it, this Ryobi model, it was the cheapest one they had, but the dust collection worked great. I didn't breathe a lot in. It didn't make a giant mess. Here I am cutting out kind of a tear in the wood from when it was milled, just to kind of smooth things out. This is going in a school classroom, so it's not going to be used with bare feet or anything, but I just want to make sure it's smoothed out and presentable and looks like some care was put into it. I do find watching the video of this really neat, because I didn't notice so much the color change as I sanded while I was actually doing it, but it's really cool to watch it now and just kind of see where the board fell off from all the vibration and whatnot. That was a little startling at the time. I didn't see it coming. I was concentrating so much, but yeah, the sawhorses that I had this table on are a little wobbly, and they kind of moved to where they were shaking a whole lot. So I got them settled out now, and the whole thing's not so wobbly. But this worked out really well, just to smooth everything over and make it look real nice. I know I'm repeating myself a few times, just because this is pretty repetitive. Now, you'll see this board has a bit of a bend, and I mentioned this in the first video when I was cutting everything to length and had them laid out. Oh, there I had to empty the dust collector. It was pretty well full, which was good. That's what it's supposed to be doing. It's really cool. But anyway, this bent board has that little bit of a warp, and I went ahead and did it, put it with that side up, because it's just one end that kind of curves up a little bit, so it'll really just be a little bit to bend back down. And I felt like if I put it the other way, it would be trying to bend down a whole lot more of it to flatten a bow in the middle rather than the end. And each one of these boards has their own little imperfections, and a lot of these you can see from the one on the end on the right hand side that doesn't have a good clean corner, because they came from the edge of the tree as they were milled out. So little things like that, or some knots here and there, but I think it gave the piece some character, not having just absolutely perfect flooring boards and that sort of thing. Gives it a bit more of a handmade feel, which, as I mentioned in the first video, I am not the most skilled craftsman, as I'm just starting out doing this, doing projects on my own by myself, not just helping my dad or working with him. So it'll have a handmade feel, because I'm pretty new and fresh to the whole process, but also that was a bit of what I was going for as well. And I'm glad I did, because it was a whole lot less stressful than trying to make it look, super clean, like it came out of a factory. But I just kind of, went over it with the sander over those sides to take the little bit of bark off the end and empty out the sander's bag again. And since this one was on the edge, I spent a little more time working on it to make sure that it would look good, because you couldn't hide any imperfections in the space between boards with this one. But it really didn't take that much, and it was all finished up and just real nice looking. So once this was done, we can move on to the next assembly step. Start lining the boards out now, so then I can get ready to drill the pilot holes and put the screws into them. And I made sure to try to get this nice and square. And I didn't realize until watching the video back that outermost screw on these outermost planks probably are going more into the gap between the in 2x4 and the joist, but oh well, it's only on the ends. And since it's a downward pressure of walking on it, it's not going to be that big of a deal. Now I went ahead and used exterior grade deck screws with the star bit on this, and I didn't necessarily need to, because they were going to be under the plugs, so it wasn't a situation where I necessarily had to worry about weather. But I just wanted to make sure that, as these are going to be used during the school year and during the winter, and we have not been having snowy winters but wet winters, so I wanted to make sure that they would be good against the weather and that they wouldn't rust and either look bad or not work as well. After doing the second one of these boards, I decided to do the ends, so then they would be locked in place, and then I could do the middle, and it would just go quick. So here I've gone down and just quickly drilled the holes, and I had some visitors come in. My dad and my little boy came in to see what I was doing, and I ended up being a couple of screws short from that box, so my dad got out some deck screws that he had left over from his deck, and I was able to finish up. And you saw how I went through and just did each hole really quickly. Never shut the drill off, going between them, because the Forstner bit has, in the drill that I did the countersinks with, has a small little point on the end, as they do, and so that gave me a place to put the drill bit to drill the pilot hole. And I ended up breaking a drill bit because it just got hot and broke off. So that probably wasn't the best way to do it, but it was kind of a mass production thing, and it got done. Now here I'm trying to smooth up those edges before putting these planks in. Now this was, doing it this way was the easiest way. At first I tried to cut the plugs out so that they'd be little and I could plug them in, and then just cut off the little bit, and wow, was that hard to do. The power miter saw was shooting the pieces all over the place, and a handsaw miter saw was tearing them, and it didn't work out. But doing each one of them by sawing them to height individually worked great. So now I go over, and I think I've still got the 80 grit sandpaper on it, and I'm trying to smooth out all the plugs. And I was using the more aggressive sandpaper just to get it done quicker, because there was quite some of these had a fair amount to get down. So just just kind of go over it and make sure everything's nice and smooth and even. And it worked really well there. The end product is just smooth all the way across, and if you were to run your hand over it, you wouldn't be able to tell. I think I'm going over this with the 100 grit sandpaper. I might be up to the 120 by now. Again, I did this over Christmas break, so it's been a little while. Okay, so these 1x6s I'm working with here are going to go around the outside, and they're going to hide the screws and the edges just to give it a bit more of a clean look. I have no idea why I was using this, the hand miter saw. I was tired and I was not getting a good even cut. But alright, that's the second video. Thank you for watching. If you like it, please subscribe, and you'll see how I even off these edges and give it kind of a beveled edge. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.